Hey everybody, it's Stephanie with the Learning Project. We are on module number 6. We're going to be focusing on family and community and partnerships. So in this lecture, we're going to be doing things a little different just because we have our platform 100% online. So there are going to be some things that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be toggling behind or between a couple of different sites so that we can make sure that we are meeting all the standards of this training. So one of the things that I want you to start off with is think about your families that you work with. I think so many times as educators, we work with so many kids, we work with so many families, we can kind of lose the opportunity to make a real connection with our families because we're so busy. You know, we're dealing with kids' behaviors, we're helping little ones learn independence, we are learning about how to support students individually and uniquely. We're coming up with new ways to create experiences in our classroom. And sometimes we can actually just really lose that opportunity to build strong relationships with families. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. First thing that I want you to do, however, is to get prepared to pull out the WAC. So I am going to be pulling up here a couple of codes. First code is 110300, last four, 0080. We're going to be looking at the question of how do we respect families' roles as the primary educator? Once you find that WAC and you look it up, I want you to take some time to reflect on it. If you need to, please feel free to pause the video. Let's look up the next WAC. 1103000085. I want you to think about two things here. One, how do you establish a positive communication and a relationship with the family? How do we greet our families? And children, are they warmly welcomed into our classroom? Our next code that we're going to be looking at is 111030000100. The next code that we're going to be looking up is 1103003040. The next question I want you to think about is how do we value and use community resources that help support and assist families? The last code that we are going to be looking up is 1103000486. When we're looking at families and how we can support them, I want you to always remember your role as an educator and understand that the more community building you do in your city, you are going to be able to help more families. The more networking you do, you're going to be able to know more about new and upcoming resources that families can use and really be an asset to that family and create strong partnerships. So there's a couple of things I want you to know. I have attached some handouts to this course. We're going to be going through the handouts because that's typically what we do as we work together. And so you'll also see my face throughout the training. So please keep that in mind as well. So let's start off about all families should be recognized as their child's primary educator and support them in the most important ways. A couple of things I want you to remember is sometimes we can be around the children so much, we begin to think that we are the primary caregiver. And because we believe that we are the primary caregiver, we will start to have certain beliefs or certain behaviors that may negatively impact the way families work with us and see us. I want you to remember that because parents or families, and I want you to notice that I shifted from parents to families because children's family dynamics are all different. And some of them live with their biological parents, some of them live with their grandparents, some of them live with their aunts and uncles, some live with a friend. So we have to be very mindful that family and how they choose to raise their child is going to look different in many different ways. I want you to think about the concept of diversity and the role that family plays in that. I want you to think back all the way to Module 1 when we talked about diversity and how we have a beautiful, diverse group of students that we work with. And those children come from families that are made up of different cultures, income, races, religions, abilities, resources, and school involvement. The word family will be used in different places, like I said, in replace of parents, because our children do not have the same family dynamic as each other sometimes. So I want you to look at this first handout that I passed out to you. It is what children learn. So because their families are the primary caregiver, they are going to be learning how skills, knowledge, attitudes about learning, learned feelings, and they're going to be learning this from their families. When they're looking at skills, and just to kind of give you guys a heads up, this is a model that was actually created that focuses on four important areas of learning and how families impact a lot of those areas. When it talks about a child's skill, young children want to do the skills they see their caregivers doing and older siblings doing. So for example, getting dressed, setting the table, helping the family cook, storytelling, things like that. Also, you want to look at knowledge. So young children will gain their knowledge about the world through their experiences with people and things. If you have a little one that has not experienced very much or has not gone anywhere, one of the things I want you to remember is that you have the opportunity to create those experiences. But I want you to think about them on a smaller level as well, such as keys open doors. If you cook something, you can cook it on top of a stove or in the oven. So these are different things that students learn or children learn as they are working with us. Even the opportunity to understand how culture plays a part. There's some families that don't cook on a stove or cook in a oven. They use different types of tools to cook and create their food. So you really have to dig in with the family and get to know them on a deeper and personal level. One of the things that I want to go over with you when we're talking about this is I want you to think about an individual child, and I want you to think about their micro, extro system, and their macro system. The individual child's micro system is their families, their peers, their siblings. The extro system is going to be more of the school, the parents' work environment, neighbors, and their macro system is going to be histories and laws and culture. So if you think about where we are right now in our crazy world, that child, their microsystem is definitely being impacted because of COVID. They are not able to see their friends and hang out with their peers. And they may not even see certain family members because they're in that vulnerable or that high risk persons that cannot be around a lot of people because if they're exposed to COVID, they're going to definitely have quite a bit of issues. The extra system is going to be like the school, the neighbors, the parents' work environment. Many parents are working from home now. So that is shaping a whole different dynamic and partnership with the child and the family. And the macro system is the laws. Man, this is like a huge one for me because if you really think about one of the laws that has been passed in some states and really a huge component to the CDC's recommendation is wearing masks. So now children have to learn to adapt to people wearing masks and learning that it's a part of their norm and it's not something they should be afraid of because it is the new norm in order to keep people safe. When we talk about the attitudes of learning or even the knowledge, you're looking at how do children see learning? How have their families shaped their view of learning? Has it been in a negative way? Has their family encouraged them to learn more, such as reading books or doing different activities or playing or even getting in, helping them get involved with different activities in the community? So, for example, I love this example. It says, for example, the child who is scolded for scribbling on the wall, basically, this is bad. So, of course, we don't want children scribbling on the wall, but we want to encourage them to take that pre-writing skill and be able to put it on paper versus the wall and explaining that and helping them understand that writing on paper is a good thing. That way we can put it on our refrigerator. You could show your friends, you could show your grandma. But if we write on our walls, that's going to damage things. That's going to maybe stain our clothes if we sit up on the wall or lean up on the wall. There's so many ways that you can go about it and really helping them to critically think about something. One of the things I always talk to my teachers about is stop telling your kids no and stop all the time because they get so programmed with that. It just becomes part of their norm. And then they begin to just feel kind of almost like they can almost ignore it. I don't know if you guys have any of those kind of kiddos where you're saying no and stop so many times and really it doesn't impact them because they hear it so much. And studies have actually been done that are really encouraging people to find different words to help children avoid danger because they hear stop, no, all of these different things so much they actually just start tuning it out. We want to talk about learned feelings. So this is closely associated with attitudes, but you also want to think about the emotional response that children have when it comes to learning. So, for example, many young children pretend to read or mimic their voices that their parents or their teachers do when they're reading or even speaking. I love this example because it reminds us that children are always watching. There's a quote that says that we are children's first inner voice. We are that one voice for them to help them understand the world and how they see themselves and others. A child is more likely to develop feelings of confidence as a reader if an adult comments positively about how they're reading or doing those pre-reading skills such as telling a story using the pictures. So this is a really cool little guide that you guys can use. This is the macro, extro, and macro, extro, and micro system that I was just speaking of when we were talking about COVID and how it actually impacts children. So we have the individual child. We have, again, COVID in our community. It impacts how they interact with their peers and family members that are considered high risk, so they may not be seeing them. Then you have your exorcism, which is your parents' work environment. Maybe they have lost their jobs or they're working from home now. So that's a whole different dynamic. Then there's the macro system, which is the laws, different things that are required, maybe that are put forth through the CDC, such as wearing masks. This is a really great example to remember and remember that children are impacted by so many different things in our world and it impacts how they are able to communicate, connect, and interact with one another. So I want us to take a look at this family photo. I think it's just so sweet. One of the things that you see here is this little girl watering these plants with this person. We don't know if it's our grandma. We don't know if it is her aunt. We don't know if it's a teacher. We just know that she is learning something from this individual. So, one of the things that I want you to think about are these few questions. What skills do you think children are learning? What knowledge are they learning about the world? What feeling or attitude might they learn about themselves as people and learners? What role do family members play in their children's learning? One of the things I want you to remember is that every opportunity with a child gives them the opportunity to learn and grow and really give back to the community. One of the things that I always talk about in the classroom, because we see job charts up all the time, but children, do they really get the opportunity to explore with that job and be able to um, give back to their community? Because that's what those jobs are, those community helpers. When there are water, they're the flower gardeners or keepers or the water planters, or they are maybe their job is to greet people in the morning. Maybe their job is to check the centers and make sure that they're clean and make sure they're all put back together. Maybe they're the line leader. Maybe they are the backpack helper. There's so many different little jobs, and we have to ask ourselves, what are children learning from those? And are we giving them the opportunity to learn and grow so that they can find their own piece of independence and be able to show what they have learned to one another as well as themselves? When we think about partnership, I want you to think about how you are connecting with people in the classroom. So a lot of times families are coming in and out, they'll pick their little one up and they'll go. And families are not connecting with educators and educators are not connecting with families. And we also lose an opportunity to help strengthen the child when we don't have those healthy partnerships. True partnership is supportive, it's collaborative, it's based on a mutual understanding. Both care providers and the family members, they want what's best for the child. So I want you to remember there's a lot of best practices that you could put into place. Making sure you greet them every morning, asking about the child's night, asking them of what they're going to do for the weekend. What are some ways that we can help your little one learn more about food? What type of food do you eat at home? These are different questions that open up conversation so that you can learn more about their child. With some centers, they do have assessments or questionnaires that families have to fill out before their child begins so that the teacher or the educator has um, a foundation of where that family is. Some of the obstacles when it comes to working with families is personalities. Sometimes we can get into that pickle where we have a difficult family and we're not really sure how to work with them. We're not really sure where to go, what to do, how to do it. And I think that's where you really have to build up a lot of courage and ask yourself, really good questions about what's keeping me from having healthy relationships with this person. And when we have a conflict, how can we resolve that conflict and work together as a team versus me against the educator? When we look at helping children and families with separation and struggles or worries or anxieties, the one thing I want you to remember is think about what the family is saying without them actually saying it. Some of the reasons why we struggle with partnership or even connection, sometimes there's a lack of time or few opportunities for communication, a lack of understanding or appreciation of background, culture, education. Sometimes there's a difference in values and views, and then also a mismatch in models of communication. So when we are working with families, we want to let them know that they are welcome. So our tone, our body language is going to either share that they are welcomed or they're not. We want to make sure that we create an environment of open communication and making sure that we are consistently speaking with families and letting them know how their little one is doing. One of the hardest things I think for educators is when they're dealing with a little one that actually may have some behavioral issues. And I want to get on the screen here because I really want to be able to talk to you guys. So when we have those little ones that have behavioral issues or their struggles, we can tend to talk about their behavior so much that families kind of shy away from even trying to talk to us, and they almost get defensive because they feel like it's a personal attack on them, and it's not. We want to partner with them in a way that is going to be productive. If we're not being productive with families, they are going to put up those walls. They are not going to want to work with us. They are not going to want to speak with us about their struggles, their challenges, because they're always going to feel like there's going to be a sense of judgment. So we have to always remember that families are people too, and sometimes they just need to know that you're on their side and you support their child. One of the things that's a big pet peeve of mine is sometimes teachers, they'll say, "Oh, your little one had a good day, they took a nap." That's great. But you also need to go into why that day was great. And sometimes you can do this through many different types of communication. Sometimes teachers have access to email. Some people are using apps, which I really highly suggest using apps such as My Day, so you can fill it out and that family can speak back and forth with the educator or with the management. Some people have paper style My Days, which is just as great. And then also too, some teachers are calling families to let them know like little updates. And I know right now we have to do things very differently because of COVID. And so there's a limited contact with families coming in and out of our centers. And so you really want to think about how can I make a really strong communication opportunity with families so that I can succeed and so can they. I want to talk a little bit more about building parental self esteem. This is my favorite thing, you guys. The reason why I love this so much is because a lot of times we don't talk about families that struggle with parenting. We should be empowering the parent to parent. When we are not empowering families to parent and to really lead their family, they can get discouraged really easy and just kind of throw in the towel. And that's not what we want to do. We want to show them that they are doing some great things. And if they don't know what to do, that's where we have to come up with resource guides. That's where we get book lists going. There's so many great audio books on YouTube for families to listen to on the way to work. Or at work or at night. So this again, there's an opportunity here that I really don't want us to miss out on as educators. And that's where the shift comes in, you guys, is that we shift from being babysitters to educators when we bring in more educational opportunities and resources that are going to help teachers and families be more on the same page because they have gotten understanding of what are some ideas or things that we can do. Sometimes we don't have all the answers as educators, but you know what? Asking the families, what do they do at home? Getting some of those simple answers so that you can just carry out what they're doing at home to help them be more successful in class. So I want to show you this next piece, you guys. Let's see. I hope you guys are enjoying this because I really love talking about this section. This part is gonna, actually I should probably explain this to you guys. So this handout here is talking about separation. We all have those kids that really struggle with leaving their families and they will flip out. They will cry, they will scream, they will hit you, they will do whatever they need to do to get to their family. So this goes over just some simple questions such as why do children cry during drop off? What can child care providers do to make it easier? Then they give you some ideas about partnering with families and make what can you do, making sure children say goodbye, making sure you give them a routine. I had a little one that used to cry all the time in class, and so I bought tons of plants for the classroom. Every morning I had her little pitcher ready. I'm like, okay, we got to water our plant. She would come in, she would be so excited because she knew that she needed to water the plants. It made her feel wanted, it made her feel like she's a part of the community. She had something to do when she came in. I think free time is great, and depending on the type of program that you run, that's really going to depend on what your mornings look like. But I'm really into giving children jobs that allow them to contribute to their community so they can see their value and they can see that this is a group of people that we're all working together and finding that unity. And I think that is something that's missing with our kids. They usually adapt that principle maybe a little bit later, but really our preschoolers and even our toddlers, they can do that if you set up a consistent routine for them as they're coming in and really partnering with that family. So as caregivers, we want to suggest that parents stay for or families stay for a couple of minutes, like 3 to 10 minutes or something like that. If they're crying and it makes it worse, I think that's okay to talk to the families about, just getting in and out. But having them come and visit the class, there is a section that I teach in my CDA class. Sorry about that, you guys. In my CDA class that goes over different family engagement pieces that you can do. You can have a Play-Doh day where, maybe from 3 to 4, you have different Play-Doh activities that families can come in and do different Play-Doh activities. Right now, it's going to be a little hard because of COVID, but it is something that I really encourage is planning those family activities so that families can get involved and they can actually be a part of the community. So it's not so foreign for the child when they are seeing their family there. There are a few other suggestions here that talk about transition objects, just like I was talking about, making sure they have a regular schedule. For me, a lot of my centers, they are required to have a strict drop off pickup time so that we can be there for the child, prepare the child ahead of time. If there's like any visits or if they're leaving or if the family's leaving, letting them know like after nap, this is when they come. Also telling the child when you're going to return, like I was saying, explaining to the child that they will always come back. So these are some really good suggestions here. Um, I want you to take a second to look at those documents, and then let's come back to this section here of conflict resolution. All right, now let's move on to conflict resolution. So when we are dealing with some of those families that, they may really have some issues with how we address certain things, or maybe they have some questions about how we approach a problem or resolve a problem. These are some great resolution tips here, conflict resolution tips here. So if you have an angry family, make sure you remain calm. It's so hard because sometimes you're like, why are you talking to me like this? I've never dealt with you in this situation and you've never acted like this before. What's going on? So stay calm, listen to them, respect the family's strong or concerns, even if it comes very strongly or direct towards you. Listen to the message and not the tone. That is something that I always tell people because sometimes people are just very frustrated about something and they just want to get it out. Once you've heard the family, you've listened to what they're saying, make sure that you are verbalizing what they're saying so that you can clarify what they just said. Then talk to them about creating a plan together to approach a situation. You want to make sure that you're not in any dangerous situation. If there are being like really verbally abusive or they're being over the top, any of that stuff, make sure that you get your director involved. If they are the director or you're in management and you are dealing with some of those families, sometimes just saying, hey, why don't we talk about this tomorrow? I see that you're really upset and I really want to get to a resolution. Can we talk about this tomorrow when you have had time to think about what I have said and I've had time to think about what you've said? Let's come back to the table to really resolve this issue and move together forward. So we want to make sure that we don't blame the parent for any of the children's behavior, or also even point fingers at other things that they may do that we may not agree with, because that may be the way their family grows in their development and how they choose to raise that child. So again, I want to make sure I'm saying some certain things really general, because there's so many different types of families and so many different types of people that we're going to work with, and their stories are all going to be different. So I want to show you this little code of ethics from NAEYC, the National Association of Education of Young Children. They really have a great statement here that covers educators' commitments of how to partner with families and really keep that strong relationship with them. We are going to go over this section here that covers true and false questions. So we will have the questions on the screen, and we are going to cover these questions. So depending on where you work is going to determine how some of these questions end up. All right, great job, you guys. Thanks so much for reviewing those handouts. We're going to be moving on from module number 6 to module number 7. Please remember to complete the assessment at the end of this lecture. We will have more resources, and I hope you guys are really enjoying yourselves. Thanks so much, and talk to you soon.